Hi everyone. So I was asked an interesting question by a viewer recently. I was asked about when do INFJs realize they're different? When do INFJs realize that they're alienated? That maybe they're a little bit unique compared to other people? Does that begin early on, in childhood when you're at school and you realize the other boys or the other girls are not like you, or they seem to function differently? Does that sense of that awareness of difference become really unavoidable and sort of striking and telling then? Or does that happen later? So I think many people are going to have different views on this. Many INFJs are going to have different views on this. And it will be hard for anybody, including myself, to not factor in their own experience as a kid, as a teenager, as a young adult, and as an adult in seeking to answer this question. Nevertheless, trying to aim for maximal objectivity in terms of what experience has taught me, not just about my own, observing my own life, but interacting with a lot of people who identify as INFJs and who seem to be credibly INFJs and who have shared with me, episodes from their early life and later in life. Of course, I will also be using some of my own theoretical constructions because I think that they are, informative. At least that's my conceit. Well, this might surprise you, but I do not think that the peak awareness of uniqueness, or at least let's not say uniqueness, but because uniqueness has a certain kind of almost like elitist connotation. So let's just say singularity. I think peak awareness of singularity happens in early adulthood. That's not to say that it doesn't start showing, certain glimpses of that earlier in school, like sort of primary school. I would say not so much, because you're so busy just making friends, being with your friends. You don't really have that level of maturity and introspection. You will notice certain things, certain traits that you may have that others don't, but you're not going to be able to cognize all of that in terms of an awareness of a certain singularity of personality, of vision, of destiny, and all these different elements. In high school, the signs tend to become a bit more numerous, but again, keep in mind that adolescence is still an age quite like what immediately precedes it, where the group is very important, beginning to assert yourself vis-a-vis your family, vis-a-vis your parents, usually entails other modes of identification. So away from the parents toward more separation and independence from the parents, toward identifying with other figures, and often the figures of the group. We've all been there, most of us have been there, where, there are certain kids in our, and teenage kids in our school and elsewhere that we feel a strong connection to, that we feel a strong sense of camaraderie with. And these, if you like, these moments and movements of identification, they're fundamental to the construction of the personality. So it's good that they exist, but it's also true that they're not most conducive to an awareness of what makes you singular. In a sense, you are already singular, but your awareness wants to guide you rather to identifying with others, to being fully socialized so that you can later on develop the resources to assert more of your individuality. The process of individuation is a long process, happens all across life. I think the first moment of true realization that you're going to have a singular path to make and that it is uniquely your path happens in early adulthood, because basically that's really when you can't really just fall back on your family to solve your problems. Your sort of teenage group tends to get dismantled. People go different places. Individual differences become more marked. The group dynamics tend to lose their potency. And most strikingly also, you're faced with very important choices. What am I going to be studying, like, in university, say, and to what end? What kind of person do I want to be? What kind of worker, what kind of line of work do I want? What do I want my future to be as decided by myself? I mean, these are questions that become very, very front and center when you are sort of around your early 20s, I think. And that applies to everyone in many ways, not just INFJs. But equally, it means that, like, someone who has an INFJ personality is going to become all more keenly aware of what makes them unique, because they'll start thinking, okay, so these were people that I identified with very strongly when we were in school, like when we were part of that group of friends, but now they want to study, I don't know, accounting, like some of these big existential moments when you realize there's no way in hell that I want to become an accountant, or I want to work in a bank, or I want to become a lawyer for that matter, whatever it might be, and so that's kind of, those concrete realizations of difference are very instrumental in bringing you closer to that level of awareness. That's also where the awareness of your peculiar kind of functioning will become more vivid. It will be a direct outcome of this further stage of introspection that you'll be engaged in. Of course, most INFJs won't think of it in terms of alienation, and that for a simple reason is that most INFJs are not aware that they're INFJs, will probably never be aware that they are INFJs, won't care to know that they're INFJs. They'll just be leading their lives. And alienation is just a concept invented by an INFJ, namely myself, to help certain INFJs, namely those that are really interested and involved in wanting to explore their INFJ-ness, right? But for most INFJs, they're not aware of MBTI, they're not aware of Jung, they're just leading their lives. But the awareness that there is something there, that they have a very, very vivid internal world of fantasy and metaphor and symbolism that seems to have them living in two different worlds, bringing very much to the fore questions of authenticity. The moment that authenticity becomes a crucial question for any person under any INFJ description, whether aware that they are INFJ or not aware of that, whenever the question of authenticity becomes front and center is the moment that you have the peak realization of your singular makeup. Because, like I've said before in other videos, INFJ is perhaps the one type for whom the question of authenticity is supremely important. Authenticity is only a problem area for you if being authentic is a problem for you, which is why it's not as much of a problem area for an INFP. Say, FI dominants don't struggle with authenticity because it comes more naturally to them. Problem with INFJs is that they have potential for a very authentic vision, but they also have the potential to escape from that vision, which is kind of scary when it comes to thinking about applying to the external world, by retreating into like judgment, especially extroverted judgment, with the consequence that if that is done, that over-reliance on extroverted judgment will lead one away from authenticity, and the person will keep being reminded of it, of all the sacrifices they made to their authenticity, and therefore to a kind of arrested development in their path of INFJ individuation. So really the question is, when does the problem area, when does the theme of leading an authentic life become very much a concern for you? That is the moment when you will realize your singularity as an INFJ. If you want to know more about questions of authenticity, being an INFJ in the world, finding happiness, purpose, and value as an INFJ in the world while remaining true to yourself, I really recommend you get this book, The Infinite Soul. That's my latest book on the INFJ Life in the Modern World. Came out a few months ago, and it really explores all these questions in great depth. So check it out. And don't forget that there's a prequel to this book, which is called The Ecstatic Soul. As you can see, the books go very well together. A new look at the INFJ personality, and this looks in depth, in the most depth that you can find online, at the INFJ mind. What is the INFJ mind like, and what's it like to think and be an INFJ? Okay, so get the two books together. That's ideal. And don't forget, my Patreon page is the lifeline of my channel. I can keep the channel going thanks to your donations, and only thanks to them. The link is below as well, so please consider joining. You get access to bonus content and the community. It's a great place. I'll see you soon, guys. Bye-bye.